Officials say Iowa is one of the safest states in the country, and they say more grant funding will help keep it that way. Now, new federal funding could help Iowa schools spot warning signs of violence and help prosecutors crack down on fraud. KTIV Iowa Capitol Bureau reporter Isabella Warren has been following the story. She joins us live tonight from Des Moines with more on legal officials with the U.S. Department of Justice who made a stop today in Iowa. Isabella?
Yeah, well, first, Attorney General Brenna Byrd and U.S. Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward held a roundtable with state and local law officials about public safety grants that was closed to the media. Now, one of those grants that was awarded by the Department of Justice creates crisis intervention programs for schools. Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Steve Bain, says it will give schools the power to help students in crisis and prevent tragedies. He says it will give them the tools to know when a student is struggling and how serious it is.
The challenges that we're finding is we're doing a very good job of starting to identify kids that are in crisis, but the challenge is how do we assess kind of where along a potential pathway of violence is that child? Is this someone that just needs some counseling and some help in school, or is this someone who is on the verge of committing a mass casualty event?
Now, that program falls under the Governor's School Safety Bureau, which helps districts prevent campus violence. Now, the state has also recently received $4 million in grant funding to fight Medicaid and other financial fraud. Attorney General Byrd, who heads up the state's Medicaid fraud task force, says it will help employ more prosecutors.
Funding will fund 5 positions, 3 in the Southern District and 2 in the Northern District, prosecutors who will be able to go after that fraud and work with my office as well. And they'll also be able to go after drug trafficking or human trafficking cases, other federal cases where their work may be needed.
Now, Commissioner Bain says those school behavior assessments will actually begin this fall, so this school year. Some other grants that the state has received include improvements to the sex offender registry, as well as help with methamphetamine and heroin investigations. In Des Moines, I'm Isabella Warren.
KTIV's Iowa State Capitol reporter Isabella Warren tonight. Isabella, thank you.